What is going on, y'all? Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chris Hennessy. This is Ending the Stigma, where I have cool conversations with cool people where God has done all kinds of amazing things in their life, whether they've been in recovery or been to prison or anything involved with any of that kind of stuff. Shannon Nelson, what's going on, friend? Good to see you. Kristen Vaughn is here. Kristen was on last week. Y'all drop a comment if you're here. That way I know you. That way I know you were here, because I won't know otherwise. So let's see. I don't think I have any announcements. Um, Still on cloud nine from being in Memphis, y'all. Like, it really was a life-changing experience, and we have started going into the homeless camp here. We found one. Supposedly, there's another one or two we're gonna try and find and see what's going on there. Um, Been able to bless some people and give them some necessities, and not even just necessities, some things they would want too. So it's been really good. God's really opening doors, so that's a good thing. My guest tonight, I actually met in Memphis when I was there, and like my all-time favorite picture, we didn't even know it was being taken. Um, and I shared this on Facebook, but I will. Hey, Michael, uh, shared it on Facebook with this picture, but I'll kind of tell you all about it. So my brother-in-law, we were sitting on the porch with a bunch of people, former crackheads and dope heads, and just it was really a beautiful time. And my brother-in-law Josh was playing the song "Give Heaven Some Hell" by Hardy, and that was the song that was played during one of the songs that was played during the slideshow of pictures at my brother's funeral. And so I'm videoing Josh, and I make it all the way through him playing it. And as soon as I hit stop on the phone, I lost it and just started crying. And Ben wrapped me up and hugged me. And I cried for a minute. And I walked to the truck to get a bottle of water. And I sat down on the steps. And Jennifer came up and gave me a hug. And she said, "Let me tell you my story." And proceeded to tell me about all the loss she's experienced, and then went into her testimony. And it was absolutely amazing. We talked for probably an hour. She did most of the talking, actually, which is fine because it was good. And I knew I wanted to get her on the podcast, and she graciously accepted. Said she'd come on, but it was really like probably one of the most impactful conversations I had the whole time I was there. So I cannot wait for her to share her story with y'all. Y'all give it up and help me welcome Jennifer Farley. Hi, Jennifer.
Hey.
How are you?
Nervous as all get out, but I'm good.
No, it's going to be fine.
Let me just be real.
It's going to be good. Thank you so
I'm
much for
honored
being
though.
here. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm loving the shirt too, man. I need to get me a Memphis Matters shirt.
Right? Thank you.
Um, I ordered a gangland shirt, but all that was on the website is black, and I see pictures of Ben and Jess and Robert, and they're wearing like colors, and I'm like, where are those? I
Where's the
didn't see
color?
them. Yeah. Hi Yvette. Thanks for dropping in. Yep, I'm loving the hat
I
too.
got I got
I,
this one donated to me by a good friend. So
did you?
yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
So just start. Just start.
Okay.
Pick a point somewhere in your life and start. Like how you started getting on drugs, or like just kind of walk us through that.
Okay. Well, I'm from Memphis, and I grew up in a very chaotic, broken home. My mom was on drugs. Lots of people, and left me a lot. I grew up around gangs, and I always say before I say this, because it's like it's nothing to brag about, because so many people do nowadays. Like, it's something cool, and I, speaking from experience, like it's not cool to see someone killed or witness that.
Mm-mm. Right.
But like where I come from and things I've been around, it was like I became immune to that. Like it was like
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And I think back to that nowadays, and I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like how I ever was numb to that was wild, but it was just so normal. I was 6 years old first time I seen somebody murdered. And but I got into drugs and alcohol very early, kind of. I was like 11 or 12 when I first tried. And I didn't spiral like into like a major addiction or anything. I was pretty much a good kid, but when I got to be like 13, 14, like I met my kid's dad when I was like 11, and we got together, and I'm more of like an old soul, always have been. And like, so I was like all honest and faithful to him, and I was with him for 11 years. I got pregnant at 15 with my daughter and had her at 16. And then 2 months later got pregnant with her brother.
Oh, wow.
So I was a teen mom of like 2 kids with no support,
Yeah.
really left to my own. Their dad, like didn't do anything. And it was a struggle. And that's when addiction, but it was like more of like, I think back on it now laughing, but it was like when I had control over it, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But like I got into like, I was a stripper, because I was working 2 jobs and it just like wouldn't cut it,
Right.
taking care of 2 kids. And so I started dancing. And when I started dancing as a stripper, like that's when I really got introduced to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I
I went through a lot of domestic violence stuff with their dad. And I mean, he put me in the hospital like over 13 times.
Wow.
And yeah, and on life support for a very long time, for months. And they didn't think I was going to pull through that. And after that, I went through a very troubled relationship with my mom. I was so resentful for her, like with her for so long because of how she raised me. Like I remember being like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. I could have been younger. I don't know, because I know we lived on LZ then. But she would leave me with like these groups of people, and I mean, nothing would be in the house, but like those fold out metal chairs or like fold out lawn chairs would be in a living room, and like everybody circled up. You would think like circled like an AA meeting, but like they were all just getting high, and like they would pass like the dope to me, and I'm like sitting there as a little kid, and it was like nothing to them. And so like I just had like a lot of resentment towards my mom for things like that for so long. And I went through a lot of like sex trauma, being molested and things like that by family and by my friend's stepdad. And just once I got into like the dancing world, things that happened. And fast forward from that, like I had met a guy and we got married like a year later, my younger 2 kids' dad. And let me back up. So during all that time, I was with this one guy also. He had like broke my face. I was like airlifted to the hospital. He like I had to have emergency reconstructive surgery to my face. And I was with him for like 3 years, and he got a drug charge, and I was with him. And so the end result of that is I did drug court, and I got clean through drug court. I graduated and everything. I did really well. Not at first though, but I mean, I completed and I did good. And I stayed clean for a long time. And that's where I met my ex-husband while I was in drug court and working at Home Depot is where I met him. And we got together and, we had kids, and I was in sobriety, and he was just not good to me. Like he cheated on me all the time. He was verbally abusive. He was very like nasty to my kids. And it was just a very toxic relationship. And I had prided myself on, I made a commitment before God, even though I didn't know God and hated God then.
Right.
So funny, like my train of thinking. But it was like I made a commitment before God, so like I have to stick this out for better and for worse, type stuff. And he it just didn't work out, like he ended up stepping out of the marriage like that last time, and it was like the last straw for me. And I was going through like cancer and a lot of other things. And he tried to like make me feel like it was me, my fault, trying to make me think like I was in my old self when I really wasn't, but that was just his manipulation. And just trying to like mentally tear me down. And so I departed from that and left him. But during that, I had fallen off again. So during that separation, because it destroyed me, I really tried to hold our marriage together.
Right.
So when that happened, I was taking him to court. We were getting a divorce, and I was going to get my kids back, I was going to take the kids from him, and him get weekends. And everything was going good. I was going to get alimony and everything. And then I went to a bonfire party. And I slipped up. And he found out about it, and I lost the kids temporarily. And in that moment, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around.
No, you're good.
In that moment, so back to 2007, like I said, I had gone through sexual trauma, molestation, and rape and stuff like that. But I had never actually like been kidnapped or abducted, like that experience of it. And in 2007, that happened to me. I went to a job interview for a secretary position, like I was trying to get out of the dance world and trying to clean myself up. And this was like a well-respected, like known building, it's not like I was like going to just some like side corner, like place to get a job. But I was kidnapped and brutally beaten and raped for like 17 hours after that. And a year later, some things happened to my kids. And my kids were like 5 and 6 then. And just to respect their privacy, like I won't go into detail because that's my story to tell. Right. But when I went, it was like when that happened, my standpoint, I was like, you can do whatever to me, but to mess with my kids, like that, like absolutely not, Mama Bear. And that created a whole new hatred for God. That moment right there, I was just like, I couldn't take it anymore. So I had already had all of that building up and that anger in my heart for that many, from 2007 and 8, plus all my, grown up years. And I've been around gangs my entire life. Like I've been around just the streets, like really like the streets, like raised me, if it wasn't. And it's so crazy because I've seen such ugly, but also such good, like I've had dope boys that, are considered like terrorizers of this world that have clothed me, fed me, gave me shelter, like it's always been such a thing for me.
Right.
Because I look back and I'm great. I see God in those moments. I see God in those moments. And so fast forward, when I went to this party and was, going through my divorce and I lost my kids, that was it for me. I had lost all hope. And I was just like, I hate you, God. Like, I want to die. Like, I can't do this anymore. And so I took my car and I drove to the Memphis Bridge, like on the Arkansas side. And so I had been taking pills, doing blow.
And for those of y'all that don't know, the Memphis Bridge goes over the Mississippi River.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And during all that, and when I was before drug court, like I used to shoot heroin. Like when I say I've done every drug there is, like I've done it all. I've done it all. I've been addicted to all of it. And it was like whatever you had, I wanted it. And so I'm underneath this bridge and I'm trying to kill myself, like with pills. I had just got my face re-broke. because I went back to an ex like an idiot, and they re-broke my face, so I had to have another emergency reconstructive surgery. And so I'm sitting under the bridge and I'm like cussing God, and I can't die. It was like, no matter how many pills I took, no matter how much alcohol I drank, like I couldn't do it. And so finally I'm sitting there for 3 days and I'm cussing, and I'm just like, okay, that's it. And I was like, God, like when I say like I cussed God, I know I want to keep it respectful on here. But when I say like I cussed God, you know, I carry myself differently today. I talk different. I walk different. I didn't used to be like that. And when I say like I had a raw conversation with God, I was like, Bradley, you are such garbage. Like to let this, like I named everything I went through, like your fault. That was your fault. You weren't there. And I was like, what kind of God are you to like let this happen to me? Let me, my kids suffer, you know, like this happened, that happened, this happened. And I was like, you're nothing. Like you ain't to me. Like absolutely nothing. And I told God, I was like, dude, I was like, let me show you. I was like, you know, your son, I was like, if your book's true, your son, Jesus, you know, all the things that me and my kids have gone through, I hope that happens to your little boy. Like, I hope it happens. And if your book's true, that's a win-win for me, right? Like, because he's going to suffer for eternity. Like, I made a mockery of God. God literally was like, bro, you ain't shit. You know, pardon my language.
No, you're good.
And so I was like, you know, maybe if you showed yourself to be true to me, maybe if you kept it 100 like a real G would, you know, like I'd serve you wholeheartedly. And I remember laying back in my car as I'm saying this, and I look back now and I see where God, it'll choke me up because I really see like how God was like, oh, you want me to show out? You want me to show you how gangster I can be? You know, so like I lean back in my car as I'm cussing God, and I'm like, you ain't shit, da, 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 you know, like going off. And when I laid back and I was like, if you would just prove yourself. And then I quietly, in my mind, I continued, because I just picture me in my car yelling, cussing, punching the steering wheel, like going off. I was out of breath physically. So I finished my sentence in my mind. And I was like, I'd serve you wholeheartedly. And I'd probably F up too, because like I'm an F up. And if you created me, you know that. But, you know, I would. And then I remember sitting up in my seat. And then now I have enough breath to finish my sentence out loud. And I'm like, but you ain't gonna do shit because like you ain't nothing. And da 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 da. You know, like I don't even know why I'm wasting my breath. I don't even know why I'm talking to you because like you ain't nothing. God heard I didn't even realize I was making a promise to God when I did that. And when I sat back in my seat and said that in my mind, like nobody was down there underneath the bridge. Like people used to go there and party, have bonfires, like just hang out there drinking. There was nobody out there. And I say that to say, for when I tell the end result, it was like God knew, so the enemy couldn't play with my mind. Like when I sat back and made that promise to God in my mind, finishing that sentence in my brain, like nobody was there looking where they could have like read my lips, you know, and like, and told somebody else to, you know, to tell you know what I mean? Like only God could have known that, what was said in my mind. And so I tell God all this and I make this promise and I'm like, but you ain't going to do shit. You know, like you ain't nothing. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm wasting my breath. And so I couldn't kill myself taking pills. I couldn't kill myself drinking and taking pills. I couldn't kill myself taking pills, snorting blow, and drinking. It was like, no matter what I did, I couldn't die. And so I was like, well, I'll just jump off the bridge. Like that'll work. So I sat there for like 3 days planning out, because I had a plan that was going to get executed. Like I didn't tell nobody where I was going. I didn't want nobody to save me. And I remember thinking, so I'll jump in front of the concrete columns because, you know, the water's just like the force. And I'm chugging. Like, I'll hit, it'll knock me out and I'll drown to death. And so I remember it was like almost, I don't know, pushing 2 o'clock in the morning. I go out there and I make sure like nobody's coming. And I just stand there and I was like, I remember like saying, F you, you ain't shit. And then like I jumped. I hit that thing like a brick. And when I fell, I didn't have any thoughts of like, oh gosh, there's no turning back. But it was just like, this is going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I hit.
It's a long ways, y'all. If y'all hadn't ever been over it, it's a long ways down, yo.
It's so far down, bro. Like, so I hit the water, and I didn't like jump feet first. Like I knew how to fall. Like I let me hit that concrete wall, you know, and die. And so I hit the concrete column, and my body is just rolling. Like here's the concrete column, and my body's like long ways, and it's just rolling. And it's like the force is so strong, it can't even push me past it. I'm just rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember the current finally started pushing my body, and it was like my foot was hung up on the concrete column. And the force was so strong, it was like, I just knew like my foot was going to break off, because that was the only thing hanging, like holding my body to that, you know, was the force was so strong, it wouldn't let me go. And then finally it just like, it broke me free from it. And I started floating. And then I remember okay, sorry, y'all. I remember the current grabbing me like a vacuum hose would grab a sock. I will never forget the feeling right above my knee, all the way down. It was like suction. And it happened so quick. And it just like grabbed a hold of me and like drug me under. My body's like spinning. And I'm like, I remember thinking like, oh my God, I didn't want memory of this. You know, like I was panicking. And I remember I can still like smell, taste the water. It was awful. And so as it's like dragging me under, when I tell you, and I paused to say, like, my uncle John, God rest his soul, he passed. When I tell you, like, he used to watch things about, you know, supernatural, you know, the supernatural of God and, you know, prophecy and things like that. I made a mockery of it. I never believed in anything like that. So as I'm underneath the water and I'm being drugged, and it's just like, it seemed like I was going down forever. I physically felt as if God put his hands underneath my armpits. I mean, I felt it as real as if you walked up behind me right now and stuck your hands underneath my armpit and pulled up on me. Like, pull me out of that water. Like, it was like my body come rushing so quick up out of the water. It was unreal. I remember looking around like thinking, who just grabbed me? Who grabbed me? And nobody was there. And so I'm instantly like knowing God is, you know, like something happened, but not willing to admit that it was God yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm instantly angry, like, why won't you let me die? Like, you're such a cat. Like, Brian never asked you for shit. Like, you just can't let me. Like, I asked you for one thing. I've never asked you for nothing. I don't talk to you. I don't bother you. I don't text you. I don't call you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't make house visits. Like, show up unannounced. Like, I asked you for one thing and you can't even honor that. Like, yeah, you're really garbage. And so I'm floating. And by this time, I've done floated so far, I can't even see the bridge anymore. I have no idea how long I was in the water. So I'm like, well, I can't drown. So I'm just going to get out. Like, this is ridiculous. That plan was a fail. So I'm walking back I get out of the water. I walked for, it seemed like hours to get back to my car. It's like November. It's cold as all get out. Like, my clothes are freezing on top of me. And I get to my car and I'm like cussing. I mean, I'm like, you're garbage. Like, I'm going off. I'm really trying to like do this as clean as possible. Because the conversation, I was like, bruh.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, we had to come to Jennifer meeting, you know what I mean? And so, like, I'm standing at my car and I'm like changing outside of my car and I'm like, I'm mad as hell. I'm like, you ain't shit. Like, you won't show up for me. Like, did I ask you for one thing? This is bullshit. Da, 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 da. And so I'm getting mad. Well, I get a phone call and I was trying to go get things for my ex, you know, that re-broke my face. They're like, well, he's gone. You can come now. So I'm like, well, I'm still on my mission to try to kill myself. So let me go get more alcohol and, you know, pills across the bridge in Memphis real quick. Then I'll do that. On my way back to Arkansas, and this is the point where God taught me gratitude. Little Miss Grateful I was. So I'm headed back into Arkansas across the old bridge at 70 miles an hour, and it's pouring down rain. And it's like 34 outside. And it's like, yeah, like it's at midnight. My front right tire blows out. My car should have flipped. That should have been a disaster in itself. My car hit the side wall, bounced off like a bumper car, and just stalled and stopped in the middle of the lane. I never even went outside the lane. And anybody from Memphis knows, like, the old bridge is skinny as all get out. Like, the lanes are small. There's no room to go, nothing. I hit the wall, bounced off, and my car, like, cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, what the, like, instant going at ham, you know, like, flipping out. I get out of my car, and I'm facing Memphis, and all I could hear was J brakes from, like, the 18-wheeler. And so I'm holding my head like this, and I'm like, this is how you gonna take me out? You cold-hearted motherfucker. Like, you gonna let me hit by an 18-wheeler? Like, oh, this is how you really want me to suffer, don't you, bro? Like, seriously. Like, you don't get, like, you're like, no, you're not gonna drown the easy way. Like, I'm gonna let you get hit by a truck. And so I'm just like cussing God. I'm seeing it. Everything's his fault, you know? It's all his fault. And this is his plan when it was his plan. It's so funny. Because I was like seeing it disastrously being his plan, but it was like really his plan. And so on the old bridge, like, there's no room for an 18-wheeler to like fully jackknife, but it can a little bit, you know, like, so this 18-wheeler's like, his trailer's like partially in the lane that my car's in, you know, and he was in the opposite lane. As I'm standing there, it's pouring down rain. I see this big red truck, Z71 Chevy Silverado with an 18-foot trailer and 2 scissor lifts on it. He whips around, and I remember thinking, how the hell did that truck just make it around that trailer like that? How did he just fit?
Yeah.
What's going on? He swerves around, and he goes in front of my car. And then, like, moments later, it's the same kind of truck, but this one is dark blue. And he pulls up behind my car.
All right, I'm going to interrupt you. Y'all pay attention to the color of the truck because it's relevant later.
I was just about to say, so the colors of the truck are so important. And so I'm standing there, and the guy gets out. And he's like, you know, what do you do? You trying to get yourself killed? And I'm like, if you only knew, like, you're going to help me out? You know? And so, long story short, he's like, I want you to get in my truck. He, like, has me, like, pull his truck up. His brother pushes my car, and he drives his brother's truck. And so they get my car off the bridge. So we're on the Arkansas side, but on the emergency lane after the bridge. It's still raining. And we're sitting there and we're talking, and this man like jumps right into action. Like, he's done got a wrecker on the way. He knows a guy with an auto shop, and he's sitting there talking to me, and he's like, are you homeless? Because he's like looking in my car, and I smoked cigarettes back then, and I used to get mad when I would open a pack and there not be cigarettes in it, and I'm like, ugh. So I used to tear the top off of a cigarette pack. And so I had all these empty packs of like Marlboro Lights in the bottom of my floorboard in my passenger side. And they were all empty. So he's like looking in my car and he's like, "Are you homeless?" And, because all my clothes are in there and stuff like that. And I was like, "No, do I look effing homeless? Like, wait, who are you to judge me?" Like, and he's like, "No, but your car looks like you're living homeless." And I was like, fuck you. You don't know, like, how you can sit there and judge me. And I was like, just because my eyes black and, I got clothes in my car, like just being so ungrateful. And he's like, "I'm just trying to help you." He's like, "You could say thank you." And I was like, "You don't help people to get a thank you and a pat on the back. Like, that's why I can't stand people like you. You want to help somebody, but then get recognition for it. Da, 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 da." And he was like, "No, but you could say if you want to cuss somebody, if you're going to say something, instead of complaining or being rude to me, you could say thank you." And I'm like, "Screw you. I didn't ask you to help me. I didn't tell you to stop on the bridge." He's like, "No, but I did." And I'm like, he's like, "But I didn't have to." And I'm like, "Don't do it if you want a reward." Cause like, you know what I mean? Like, who are you, bro? Like, you want some golden star because you helped me? Okay. And so I was so ungrateful. Oh my gosh. So embarrassing. So, like, I was such a shit. And so,
For real.
yeah, literally. And so he's like, he gets all this stuff taken care of. Okay. So meanwhile, the rain has slowed down, but him and his brother are smoking. Now, unbeknownst to me, he constantly keeps looking at my floorboard and at me while they're smoking because I haven't asked for a cigarette, and like, I just got in a wreck, like, I'm stressed.
Probably
He's
use
a
one right
smoker.
now.
He knows, like, why ain't she asking for a cigarette, you know? And so during all this, he's like, he's like, "Do you know where such and such hotel is in, Marion, Arkansas?" And I'm like, "Yes. Like, I told you, I got family across the bridge." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "We'll get in the truck." And I'm like, "You don't tell me." He's like, "Just get in the truck." He's like, "Quit your arguing, Miss Grateful, and get in the truck." And it's just like something in me was just like, "Okay, I'm going to shut up. I'm just going to get in the truck. So he ends up taking me and we're driving to this hotel. And he's like, got a wrecker coming to get my car. His brother's following in his truck and trailer. And when we're on our way there, I'm like, "Oh, I've seen this before. Like, you think you're fixing to get something. Like, you're taking me to a hotel. Like, ain't nobody trying to help somebody for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I see where this is going." And I was like, well, one or two things are going to happen. Like, he's going to not get his way and he's going to attack me. Or, like, he's going to get this hotel for nothing because he's not going to get his way and he's going to kick me out of it. And so we get to the hotel. This man buys me a hotel for 6 months. 6 months. It's $70 a night. And he only got a 15% discount because he already puts his workers for the company he owns. He puts them there for when they work there for his out of town workers. So because he, does business with them already, he got a 15% discount. But he paid 6 months for me to have a hotel there to myself. And as he's paying, I notice he has a wedding ring on. And I'm like, "You piece of because he hasn't walked me to her. I'm like, "You piece of like, I bet your wife doesn't, like, I bet she doesn't know anything." Da, 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 da. And so I'm going off in my head and playing the scenario of like how this is ending and what his motives are. He takes me back to the room and I'm like, "And you're married. Like, does your wife know where you're at, what you're doing?" He was like, "Actually, she does." And she did. And that shocked the crap. I'm like, where did this guy come from? Like, who does that? Like, who tells their wife, like, I'm helping some, woman in distress, And so fast forward to, we're sitting there and he's like, "You got your room." He's like, "You got heat, air, he's like, "Got a refrigerator." She's a little naked right now. He's like, "But I'm going to run to Kroger in a minute." He's like, "We're going to dress her up." And I'm like, okay. And I'm still being like such a little like, "Okay, cool. Like, you want a star for that too? You want a pat on the back?" Like, so ridiculous. Like, "That's cute. You want to buy me groceries? Oh, you nice guy." Like, God, you ungrateful little shit. And so, fast forward to, he goes to the grocery store. Well, before he leaves, he's like, "So listen," he goes, "being that I'm such an asshole," he's like, pardon my language, he's like, he said, I was thinking about it on the way here, and I noticed that you didn't get any belongings out of your car. And I'm sure you want a shower. Not saying that you look bad. He like corrects himself. He's like, I'm not saying you look bad or anything. I'm just saying, you know, you might want to have a hot shower or something later, and you're gonna need some clothes. He's like, so I got my tow truck driver pulling up here so that you can get some things out. He said, but since you don't know the guy, he's like, I figured I'd leave my brother here with you, even though you don't really know us. He's like, but you've been around us for a minute. And he's like, and trust me, you know, blessing us with your grateful attitude. If we were going to do something, we would have done it a long time ago. And I'm like, and he's like, we would have done something a long time ago. Trust me. He said, but so that you can get some things out while I run to Kroger. This man goes to Kroger. And so, oh, I left that part out, Chris. Oh, Lord, help me with my nerves. So when I was cussing God and calling him out, you know, like saying, you know, if you promise. So I remember saying, and don't sprinkle your little God shit. Like, don't sprinkle your little God. Oh, that's me. I was like, you better come correct with me. Like, I better undoubtedly know it's you. I want facts, bro. Like, you better convince me. You know, like, don't play with me because I've been heard it, seen it all. And God's like, okay, bet. Watch this. And so I'm sitting there, and he goes to the grocery store, and when he comes back, he gets me $250 worth of groceries. And when I tell you, like, he got things that, like, only, like, are my childhood favorite things. You know, like, my mom used to not buy the Yoplait, like, yogurt. She would get the strawberry banana Kroger brand. He got that. He got the apricot jelly and the peach jelly because he didn't know which one I would like, and I seemed like a complicated person. But lo and behold, like, he didn't get grape and strawberry like some normal person. He grabbed the peach and apricot, which is, I use both on my peanut butter and jellies. Like, I can't make this stuff up. You know, like, it's crazy. And so then he, like, got all this fruit and stuff, and he's, like, putting things away in the refrigerator for me. And he's like, I got you some grapes, you know, like, I don't know what I put. I was like, you didn't get any. And I'm standing there, like, I'm not even helping him put groceries up. I'm just like, you didn't get any grapes. He's like, no, I did. I know I got grapes somewhere. He's like, I had them somewhere. And, like, the refrigerator of the hotel, if you open it, like, the plastic door to the freezer, if you open too hard, the suction, like, it'll flap it open.
Right.
He does that, and the grapes are in the freezer. And I'm just like, that's the only way I eat grapes. That's how I've done it my entire life. Because that's how my mom and them did it for me. Like, they put them in the freezer, and that's how my kids eat them today. And so I'm like, you can leave them there. And he's like, God said you was a little weird, but it's okay. He's like, God likes weird. I like weird. And I was like, shut up. Like, just leave the grapes in the freezer. You know, like. And so he gives me this card, and he gave me $1,000 gift card to Kroger. And in this card, he tells me that he knows, like, that day I wouldn't realize it, and that if I did, I wouldn't admit it. But he was like, the day that you come to this realization that you feel like I was such a blessing to your life, he's like, I want you to know that you blessed my life and my heart so much more, like 10 times that. And he is like, 15 years ago, I moved here. He's like, I woke up in the middle of the night, and God told me to move to Tennessee to start a construction company, that I was going to meet my wife, have a family, and that I was going to get off drugs, because he used to shoot meth and, you know, coke, and did everything. And he was like, and my family laughed at me. And he was like, and I did it anyway. And he was like, and a year later, I moved my brother down here with me, and he's been doing the same, you know, like, he's changed his life around and doing well. And he was like, and I've gotten to doing so well that I forgot where I came from. And he's like, and you humbled my heart today. And he's like, you've turned, he's like, I've forgotten to, you know, what God's brought me from. And I don't lean on God like I should. And he's like, and you helped me with that today. And so I'm standing there, and it was like, he's such a character. He was like, and he kept saying, like, before he went to the store, he's like, he's like, God said she's going to smile and say thank you. He's like, watch what God does. He's like, God don't lie to me. And so I'm still standing there like with this attitude, and he's like feeling like it's at the punchline. Like, she read the card, she's fixing to say it, it's fixing to happen. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, God, you've been like this the whole time. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'd have left her on the bridge. And remember, the one that said I would have left her on the bridge. He was the one driving the blue truck, the navy blue truck that pulled up behind my car. And he's like, no, he's like, oh, he's like, man, I almost forgot. He was like, watch it. He's like, watch this. He's like, get your camera out. He's like, it's fixing to happen. He's like, I left it in the truck. And so he runs out to the truck and he comes back to the door and he's got his hands like behind him like this. And he's like, now I wasn't going to get these for you, Miss Grateful. He's like, because I told God, we argued about this one. He was like, I told God now, I was going to get her these, but, you know, she ain't grateful. He's like, I was standing there on the coke aisle. It's like, God told me, no, she is grateful. That's why she ain't asked for one, because she knows you've already blessed her so much that she don't want to ask for something that's not a necessity. And so he still hasn't said like what it is, though. It's like he's talking around it, you know, and I'm sitting there thinking like, what is he talking about? What, just spit it out, bro. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he's like, soon as God sent that, I was like, all right, God, let's go to customer service. She's getting them. And he's like, so I got you these. And like, he pulls his hands around and it's like 4 cartons of cigarettes. Boy, God knew where to hit my heart. Well, I started crying. I was so excited. I was like, I wanted a cigarette so bad. And I just started bawling, and I was like, dude, I've been such a bitch to you. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, please forgive me. I was like, I'm just going through a lot. And he's like, man, God sees you. I was like, well, I don't know about that part, you know, but like, yeah, you know, like, I appreciate you being there for me. So that was the beginning of like God working and me not seeing it. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, this man gives me a job. So I worked for him making like $35 an hour, $35 an hour, doing construction, tearing down stores, rebuilding them. And a year later, I was like, I've got to get out of Memphis. I've got to get away from here. Like, I keep falling backwards. And so somebody was like, what are you going to do? Like, put your finger on a map and like go here. And I'm like, well, I bought my husband a trailer in Batesville, Arkansas one time. That's a cute town. It's out in the middle of nowhere. That sounds good. And so I go out there. That's how I picked the place. That's how I picked Batesville. It was like, someone said that to me and I'm like, that's kind of an idea. So I go there. Well, I'm not there a week and God gives me a house. My rent paid for 6 months. My lights and water paid for 6 months. I got a job washing dishes. And this bubbly little person named Brittany, she was like such a Jesus freak. Oh my gosh. And she was like, do you know the Lord? Like, what brought you from Memphis? And like, when I moved there, I was like, bro, I'm not telling nobody like nothing about me. Because people just use it against you. Like, they judge you. They're not going to know. Like, I don't have kids. Like, I'm not going to tell nobody nothing. You know, like, nothing. And so she talks me into, because God, through this girl and, like, her husband and, like, they knew somebody and, like, his parents owned the restaurant, which was, like, a $1.4 million restaurant on the water, on the river up there. They invite me to church, and I'm like, well, y'all say God gave me, I mean, I guess I owe like one visit to church, like one, and I'm done. And so like, I go to church and like, I end up like repeatedly going a few times. Before you know it, like I get saved and baptized, and I'm doing ministry stuff with them, like getting involved. I'm going to like revivals. But there was something missing in my heart of like that undoubtedly knowing he is who he says he is and that he's real. And it was like my heart was still seeking that encounter. And I didn't even realize it, you know. And so fast forward, this guy like invites me to this church, and I'll never forget when he looked away. So he was telling me about it. I'm like, what's your story, Jerry Curl? Because he had like an old school Jerry Curl. He was one of the cooks there. And I was like, do you believe in God? And he was like, oh, yes, ma'am, I do. He had such a soft little voice. He's so sweet. I love him. And he was like, he's like, yeah. He's like, I go to church. He's the head of my life for sure. And I'm like, that's cool. And I was like, so you do go to church? He's like, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, I even played the guitar at my church. I was like, well, aren't you the overachiever? And he said, yeah. He said, you ought to come. He said, my pastor, he's real. And he stops and he like looks away, and then he looks up at the ceiling, and he was like, closes his eyes and he shakes his head as if somebody's talking, like as he's having a conversation. And he's like, yeah, you should come. He's like, I think it'd be a really great experience. You should really come. We have a service every Saturday night. And I was like, Saturday night, bro, y'all some dedicated mother truckers out here. You hear me? Who goes to church on a Saturday night, bro? And so he starts laughing. He's like, well, you should come. So fast forward to like months later, he comes, I show up and I go to this church. And when my car hit the parking lot, I mean, literally, when the tires hit the asphalt that is part of that parking lot, the sensation and the tingling and the heat that I felt from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes is one that I can never describe in words. And all I could think was, what is wrong with me? Like, I've been to church a million times now. I'm getting the hang of this thing. Like, why am I so nervous? I've been to revivals and had those little fake prophets like, oh, God's going to bless you and do big things. And nothing that was like, things that would be said to me like that. It was like, dude, you could have said that to the 5 people to the left of me, the 5 people to the right of me, and the ones behind me too, and it would have fit them. You know what I mean? Like, it's so generic. Like, okay, cool. God's going to bless me. That's great. And God is good, cool, whatever, And so I go in and I'll never forget, like, seeing this man smile. And I'm like, I was so drawn to him, but didn't like really like looking back, my spirit was so drawn to him. He introduces himself and whatever, I go sit down. But when he shook my hand, like my body swayed. Okay, like my body swayed. And he was like 40 minutes into his sermon. Okay, like I go sit down, he's preaching, things are going great. And 40 minutes into his sermon, he's like dealing with something up there, and he's like, y'all gonna forgive me. He's like, man, the Holy Spirit's really moving. This, that, and the other. And he's like, you gotta give me a second. Well, he fights it for so long before he's like, okay, I can't fight it. He's like, I had a plan, but God's got a bigger plan. He's like, sister right here. He's like, you've been seeking and undoubtedly knowing God is who he says he is. He's like, can I please pray for you? He's like, sister with the red hair. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. And I'm like, like looking around, you talking to me? And so me being who I am, I'm like, he's like, oh, the devil is a lie. He's like, look at her. He's like, she's on a road with nothing but black women with black hair. He's like, she's gonna look around knowing she's the only person sitting there with red hair. And so I'm like, oh, me? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, bro, I'm straight. I appreciate it though, but I'm straight. And everybody starts laughing. And as soon as I got that out of my mouth, I'm like, what did I just say? Like, no, bro, I'm straight. Like, I'm in church. Like, who says that? Like, shut up, Jennifer. And so when I say that, he's like, the devil was like, he said, the Lord said it was gonna be, trouble to get you up here. He said, y'all extend your hands and pray with me. And I'm like, this guy's lost it. He's crazy. And so he says a little prayer, and then the man walks off. And when I say like he walked off to the wall and was like praying at the wall. And that in that time, I'm like, this dude is crazy. Like, God, listen, bruh, time to have a conversation. Like, if you don't talk to that dude, if he don't quit trying to put me in the spotlight, and like I don't do this type of stuff, like we ain't bringing me up there and all this hoopla, you better talk to your little preacher over there. I mean, I've been trying to walk this thing out, be cool with you for like 6 months now. You need to go on ahead and tell me back down. I was like, so you better hold your boy off. And so, and I'm like, if you don't, I'm leaving. And so I know I've learned enough in church that it's like real disrespectful to walk out and leave in front of a pastor. I was like, if he don't respect my no, that's what I'm gonna do. God, don't test my thugging, because like you know what I'm gonna do. Like I'm gonna do it so ever so disrespectfully. Like don't try me. And so if it happens, it's your fault, God. Well, he walks back over. Now before I tell this part, I'm gonna say there's a lot of people in my family that are racist. I don't know if it's okay to say, but this is part of my testimony, and it is what it is. I don't have anything to do with them. My mother raised me, and my mama may have been a drug addict. My mama may have been a lot of things, but she taught me to love everybody for who they are. And I say that to say this, like when I got raped and kidnapped that one time, like the actual kidnapping part, it was by a black man. It didn't matter to me what color they were. But my family, like, there was some family and some adopted, like, people in my family that were like, I bet I bet you see them for what they are now. Like, I bet you won't have another, in my sister's house, or, blah, blah, blah. And I got so mad, like, so mad. And I went off on them. And I was like, y'all ain't nothing. You ain't shit to me, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, if y'all think I'm going to let what one person's F up, did turn me against a whole race, like, you ain't shit. Like, F you, And so I fast forward to tell you, I say that to say this. When he walks back over, I have every intention that if he asks me again, I'm leaving. But he lays the mic down. He's a black pastor. He raises his hand and goes, he asked me, because he was like, when I had said Nalbra, I forgot to say, he asked me where I was from. And I was like, I'm from Memphis. And he's like, Sister Memphis. Sister Memphis. And he's like, you just didn't sound like you were from around here. And so he raises his hand and he's like, Sister Memphis, you see these black hands right here? He said, they don't wish to harm you, touch you in any disrespectful manner. He said, I would like to, he's like, this is my wife, Kim. This is my sister. And he's like, they would maybe just stand beside you for support. If I could just lay hands on you, on your head, your shoulder, maybe even go lay hands on you just above your head, above your shoulder, and pray for you and give you a word from God that you've been seeking. And he said, and so that you may have a real transformation. In the midst of him talking about where he would put his hands, I didn't wake up or anything on the floor, but my mental came to. I'm out of my seat and already halfway walking up to this man, and I cannot stop my feet from walking. And I knew enough about your brain system, like it tells you, when we move our body, our brain tells it before it does it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, the door's to the right, feet walk right, like, bro, walk, exit out, walk to the right, walk. And I could not still, it was like my feet were glued to the floor and walking straight up to him, and I had no control over it. It was such a, that experience alone, could have sold me. And so I get up to him, and he's like, he said, I've never had someone, and he's like, test me in my faith as much. He's like, not test his faith, but he's like, I know when God gives me a word so profound that it's time to be delivered, and you were fighting it so hard. And I'm like, oh no, bro, you don't understand. Like, I'm leaving. I'm on my way out. Like, I was just trying to be respectful, come chop it up, say, cool, good job preaching, but I'm leaving. And he was like, no, you ain't going nowhere. He's like, the Holy Spirit brought them feet up here. He's like, you ain't going nowhere. And so he tells me, he was like, he said, I had to really go to God. He said, because I felt like I was going to lose a soul to the kingdom. He said, I told God, you're going to have to give me something good, because we're fixing to lose this one. He said, and that's when God showed me Y'all gotta forgive me.
No, you're good. You're not the only one crying. Kara's over there bawling like a baby too, she said.
It's so crazy how real God is. Oh, and I want everybody to have an encounter like I had. Oh, Lord. He said, God showed me what that black man done to you. He said, and it tore me up inside. He said, but what he showed me next is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. He said, would you consider yourself a Christian today? And I was like, I mean, I got baptized, bro. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, like I got saved and stuff. Like, and he's like, but you weren't then when it happened, right? And I was like, no. And he was like, I know, because God showed me. He said, see, when we become one with the Lord, we tend to love and give grace as God had freely given us. He said we tend to he puts he puts a fire and a yearning in our heart to burn like his, to love and give grace like he does. He begins to change our heart so we respond as he would respond. He said, but see, you didn't know him then, so you weren't one with him. He said, but he showed me, he said, you didn't let what that man turn your heart cold towards black men as a whole, towards men as a whole, towards men as a different ethnicity as a whole. He said, and I'll never forget him punching his hand. It was like, I told God, like, don't just sprinkle your little. I mean, I look back now and I see every sign from God. He punched his fist and he was like, you only held that individual responsible for what they did. He said, God showed me you coming against a bloodline. I don't know what this means, but God just showed me you coming against a bloodline. My family, I shunned my whole family over them calling this person and trying to make this what happened to me about a race thing and not about like what I went through. And I disowned all of them, like I to this day, because their hearts are still like that, and I pray for them now. But like nobody could have known that, you know what I mean? Like nobody knew me there, and so he's like, you didn't turn your heart on. He's like, and God, he's like, you done that with your own heart, and God wants to honor your heart today and show you who He really is. And I remember when he said, like, God wants to honor my heart. Like, why would He want to honor my heart? You know what I mean? Like, I'm shit. I'm garbage. Like, why? You know what I mean? And so, in that same turn, he's like, Sister Memphis here. He's like, she's been seeking a real move with God. He said, aren't y'all glad? He said, saints, can y'all give glory? He said, aren't y'all glad God knows her heart more than we do? And everybody like screamed on. He's like, no, you don't hear me. Aren't y'all glad God knows our heart more than we do? He says, Sister Memphis here made a promise to God. He says, she cussed God under the same bridge. He saved her underneath of and on top of. When he said that, I about fell out. Like, I remember his wife, like, catching my back. My body swayed. I about fell out right then. He's like, y'all don't hear me. He's like, and it was like God knew I needed the comedy in it. He's like, y'all don't hear me. He's like, I feel like I ought to do an altar call just on the thoughts of what her conversation must have been like. He's like, could you imagine the words coming out of Sister Memphis? He said, I thought she was going to tear me down just because I wanted to pray for her. And he was like, he said, no, seriously, saints. He's like, she cussed God into the same bridge He saved her underneath of and on top of. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know what it was, sister. He said, I'm not a psychic. I'm not. It's not. He said, he said, I'm on this altar every Thursday, Friday night. He said, seeking God. He said, He comes before my kids, my wife, my family. He's the head of everything in my life. And He just happens to honor my heart. And he said, I don't always know every detail. He said, but what He showed me, what He sent in front of you, He said, He heard your heart and He answered you immediately. He just couldn't show you immediately. He had to take you through some things so that you may receive this word today. But He showed me what He sent you, sit in front of you on the bridge was red. The truck The dude's truck was red that parked in front of my car with the 18-foot trailer on it. He said that was to represent the blood of Jesus, that he's gone before you and he's your fighter. He's going to fight your battles. He's got you. And if you lean on him, it doesn't matter what comes your way, that he's got you and he's got a way out and he'll strengthen you to go through it. And there's purpose for it. And he said, when he showed me, he sent behind you. He was off on the color because the truck was dark blue. He said it could have been gray, maybe it was black. I don't know. He said, but that was to represent that the enemy is always behind you, chasing you down, trying to pull you from God, trying to pull you from your purpose. And when he said that, like, I literally woke up on the floor. Like, I lost it. Slain in the spirit. It's a real thing. Holy Spirit's real. God is real. And I remember waking up, like, showered with tears, going, oh my God. Oh my God, you're real. Whoo, you thugged out on me. Oh my God, you're real.
You thugged out on me, she said.
You thugged out on me, you're real. Oh God. I was like, oh my God. The things I said, like I wanted the same things that me and my kids, my family's been through. I wanted your son to go through. Like, I made a mockery of you, and you still love me after that? Like, say that to me, and I'm gonna gun you down. You know what I mean? Like, like, and you forgave me, you love me, even still. It changed my whole world. Like, I really knew God was real then.
Yeah.
And it's like my whole life has been transformed since then. Have I made mistakes? Have I faltered? Have I fallen short, fallen back? Yes. But because of God showing me who he is in such a mighty way, God, I tell everybody all the time, if you want to know God is real, Karma, I'm like, call that MFR out. Like, he can handle it. He can handle your cuss words. He can handle all of it. You know what I mean? Like, he can handle all of it. Because through that, since then, like, I was gaining my kids, got my kids back, lost my kids again, still working on getting my younger two back. I lost my parent, like, almost 3 years ago. I lost my dad. Then I lost my step-grandfather. Then I lost my grandmother. A week later, I lost my mama. That was all in a 5-month period. That following year, I lost my cousin. Then my sister-in-law, like, and then I can't even tell you. It was like literally 12, 14. Like, I lost count of the fentanyl overdoses.
Yeah.
Of people that I know. But because of God, show me who he is, no matter how much I falter, no matter how much I'm weak sometimes. The cliche comment where I'm weak, he is strong. It's so true. God is so real. And I think back to it, and it was like, I look back and it's like, God, like, boy, he's a clown. He's such a clown. He's like, oh, you don't want my little God shot and my little sprinkles? You want me to show out? He's like, boom. You know, like jelly. Oh, you want me to show out? Boom. Peach and apricot jelly. Boom. What's up? You want me to show out? Boom. There's some frozen grapes. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, I look back at all of it and I appreciate it so much more. You know what I mean? Like, he answered me immediately. And that's what gets me through today, is like when things aren't going my way or I'm struggling, like, I'm like, okay, like, I'll even be transparent. Like, Pastor Mike Todd, I love him to death. I've been watching since 2019. He always talks about hot, honest, open, and transparent. I was super nervous, and it's probably showing. I'm like talking with my hands, and I'm like,
no, you've done so good. So good.
But like, even before we began, I'll just tell people watching, like, we were trying to set it up so that it could go live on Facebook. And I remember like praying because I was like, God, I'm so nervous. Like, help me with my nerves, God. I'm struggling. And we tried to get it to do like the Facebook Live, and like we couldn't get it to work. And me and Chris were sitting here remember I told you, I was like, well, look at God going before me. Like, he was like, you can't deal with the pressure of knowing people are watching you on live Facebook.
Yeah,
You know,
and
like,
just to be clear, we were trying to hook her Facebook up to it. It is
yeah,
live on my Facebook. We were trying to hook it up to her Facebook, and it would not connect. Like she was screen sharing and everything. And y'all know I do this stuff like this is my jam, and like it wouldn't do it. Just flat out would not connect. And I have
yeah,
no idea why.
like all the settings were right, like everything was correct. It just would not connect.
Wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't do it. And so, like, I just see God in all things. And today I'm like such a better woman and mother because of like God and because of all my struggles. And, you know, for people that like don't believe God is real, like this comes from so like when I'm telling you, like I hated God or was in him, I'm like, and through all of that, like 4 years before my mother died, through my walk with God and her seeing how God, like the power of God is real and like what he had done in my life thus far, my mom gave her life to the Lord, and my mom made amends for
That's
things I thought
awesome.
she would never admit to, things she lied about, like,
That's awesome.
and would deny, you know.
Yeah.
She gave her life to the Lord and like made amends to me. And our relationship was beautiful when she
That's
passed.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
I
so,
don't think I knew that part. I don't think you told me that part.
yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And my parents, like, you know, like they died in sobriety. Like, it's God. It's all God.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
For
God.
sure. I told y'all she had a good story, and I told y'all were gonna want to
I hope
listen
I
to
did
it.
it justice. Like, I was like, so,
Oh, it was so good.
yeah.
I don't know if you can read that comment. That's April Garner. She's part of the Raven is here. She's part of us. And can you read the comment on that little bitty screen? So I don't know you, but I'm so glad God brought you through it. You're beautiful, funny, and so full of life.
Oh, thank you
Uh,
so much.
you'll get to meet her in October.
Oh, God. It's all
Yep.
God. And, you know, like, I'm still growing and learning. And, you know, I just try to stay humble, you know, like I told God, you know, because about, like I said, we've all backslid in some way. We all do it on a daily basis, you know, it's a daily thing. But like I've told God this go around, like, I don't ever want to get so cocky like that time back at living in Batesville. So I got so cocky, like I had God figured out, you know, like,
Yeah.
okay, bro, I got it. It's cool.
Yeah.
You know, like I got it from here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you steered the left lane, I got the right one, okay?
Yeah.
He's like, okay, go on ahead, Memphis.
Go on ahead, Sister Memphis.
I'll be here when it's done.
But that
But
just made like
it's
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, it is. It's just crazy. He is like every time he's there.
Yeah. And the fact that he knew exactly what it was going to get you to take to break.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there was no way on earth that pastor would have known anything that happened to you.
Oh, that was another thing, because you know, like back when I was saying the promise, remember I said like the promise, and I sat back and said
Yeah.
that? It was like that he knew, like, because the enemy would have played with my mind and been like, oh well, some crackhead was probably out there and seen you lift that and like knows this pastor and told him blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like God was in every inch, every centimeter, every ounce of it, like all of it. I see all of it, and it was so abundant, and it's still. Every time, like, I think he can't blow my mind. He's like, remember when he called me out? He's like, I'm the best at this.
Yeah.
You know, like, he blows my mind. Like, I'm such a, like, Jesus freak. I love it. I don't care. Like, judge me. Yeah. I love the Lord. Like, when you come from what I have and seen the things that I've seen and gone through what I've gone through, I was radical out there, and now I'm radical on this side, and I love it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect or anything, you know, like My ex-husband still, says I'm a piece of crap mom and that I'll never see my kids again. But you know what? I know God says I will.
Yeah.
And I know
He is a restorer of families. I believe that with all of my heart.
yeah. And I
I
have a
do.
good life today. I have so many great friends and like believers, and I'm too blessed. I'm too blessed. And I want
He's
everybody to, I'm like, God, please, can all of them have that experience, bro?
yeah.
Please. You know what I mean? Like, please.
Yeah.
I want
He
everybody to have an
also
experience like that.
he also says he will restore the years the locusts have eaten. So
Yeah.
you're not too blessed. He's restoring the years that the locust ate. He's restoring the years that the enemy ate up. You're not too blessed. This is how it was always supposed to be. He's restoring all that.
I've never heard it put like that.
Yep. You're not too blessed. There's no such thing with God.
Mm.
We may think that, and I don't understand what you mean, but he's restoring is all he's
Wow.
doing.
I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I don't have it all, but like I'm still growing. Like,
Yeah.
Pastor Mike Todd talks about crazy faith, and I've got it. I got stupid, ignorant, crazy, ridiculous, what the cornbread faith. You know what I mean?
What the cornbread.
What the cornbread, like, girl, like, yes, just like I told you earlier, Walgreens. Everything is God to me.
Yeah.
Like I told you the story about the coupon at Walgreens.
Yeah.
Like, look at God. They're like, I think you're being a little extra. I'm like, God gave that to me. Like, I think it was just the coupon and it was on sale. I'm like, God made it on sale and God gave me that coupon. Look at God.
Right? I love it.
I do too.
Absolutely love it. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for hanging out with me and telling your story for all of these people to hear. You did good. Like you couldn't tell you were nervous at all.
Thank you. Yeah, right.
For real.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we bounce out of here?
Just, and anybody that's watching, call God out. Even if you think you know him, if you don't know him, if you think you know him, call God out and watch him show out. Oh, he's the best at it. Like, if you think you want to be like, I don't know, it's like I used to thug out for the streets. I used to go hard for the streets. I used to do this, do that. Like, and when I say like, I mean, like I went out like just straight like killing people or nothing, but like I know people that were. I was around people that were, and like, but man, he's the best thug I ever knew. Like, God's a thug. I mean, you can't convince me otherwise. He's straight gangster. That's my dude. You hear me?
I love it. Yeah.
He's such a thug in the best way,
Yeah, man. I love it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, just call God out. Just ask him, like, what's up, bro? He'll show you what's up.
Yeah, real quick.
He'll show you what the business is, I promise.
Yeah. And if you think he won't do it for you, just test it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. This was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
We do
I'm so glad I got to hear it all again. Yeah, we do recover. Mm-hmm. Yeah. To all the people that think we don't, we do.
I do.
For sure.
That's right.
All right, y'all. We will be here next week at the same time. Yeah, I don't have any announcements or anything. So, yeah, Jennifer.
Shout out to We Fight Monsters and to
the Raven is here.
A better way.
Yep. A better way. Yep. Yep. Love you, sis. Appreciate it.
Love you too.
Don't leave. Don't leave when we end. Don't leave.
Okay.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.